All right, welcome to another edition of Spiritual Disclosure. I'm your host, Dean Ryan, and today I'm joined by my wonderful co-host, Dr. Lynn Orwig, biofeed specialist. Biofeedback. You know, it's all that tea I've been drinking here. And of course, author pilot Michael Orwig, and the wonderful multidimensional expert Sarah Adams. And today we have a special guest in the studio. We have joining us Anna Kujawa, holistic psychotherapist. Thank you for joining us today. And gosh, what a great day! Our first guest in the studio on one of our first several episodes. And how did you get here in Colorado to the studio today? What brings you here?
Lynn.
Yeah.
Yes, Lynn and I are part of a disclosure group. And so we've been with a group talking about all things disclosure and spiritual. And
Right.
so that's
Just was a perfect
exactly.
person
Yes.
to bring in.
That's
Yes.
right. We've already been talking about that for a while.
Yes, we have.
Well, that's wonderful. We're going to get to all that great work you've been doing, and I know our audience is going to love it. But let's jump right into it, guys. There's so much happening in the news, and you know, right now, a recent report in Forbes magazine, it says nearly 250,000 British patients have been waiting more than 6 months to receive planned medical treatment from the NHS, the National Health Service. And it says Royal College of Surgeons, 36,000 have been in treatment queues for 9 months or more. So here's the question, guys. Is this now the time for individuals to discover homeopathy?
Yeah.
Because that's a long time to wait. Let's say you got a kink in your neck and you're waiting months to get it checked out. Or you got a rash. Isn't this the best possible time for the spiritual and natural community to really promote homeopathy?
Well, first of all, especially in Britain, I don't know if it's covered under the healthcare plan, but they do have one of the largest homeopathic hospitals in the world in Britain. And the Queen has her own homeopath, so clearly she knows the value of homeopathy. And for those who don't know anything about homeopathy, it's basically like cures like, and they use a small amount of substance, and it works energetically in our bodies. So I will let Miss Sarah say a little bit about that too.
Well, she's been doing homeopathy for many years.
Yes.
So I do use it to treat a lot of things, whether it's physical issues or whether it's even spiritual issues. It can clear emotions. It can clear negative energies from the body. I think a lot of people, they just need to get involved in natural medicine. Homeopathy, yes, but also taking care of your diet. Eating a lot of fruits and vegetables, becoming healthy, taking care of your health yourself rather than waiting on doctors for months to tell you what's wrong with you. And then usually doctors find 5-6 different things and they give you more medication, and then this leads to you just get more sick and sick and sick. So I suggest detoxing, healthy eating, homeopathy, herbs, things like that to heal. And then we wouldn't have the problem of all these people just waiting for doctors and holding on to doctors to heal.
You know, Anna, the question is it about medical coverage or medical care? You know, those lines are really blurry, because you could have the coverage, but it could be the worst care possible.
Right, exactly.
But the other thing in this country, and you mentioned it, is what the insurance companies in general determine a great level of the care, because a lot of people don't have the resources to access Sarah or my wife Lynn or any of the other many healers that do wonderful practice. And yet when I write about the new children, and I did an extensive entire segment on the medical industry, if I go to a doctor, I know he's got 2 modalities he's allowed within normal practice, because he's got to follow standard practice of care aligned by the AMA. They have 2 modalities: surgery, big pharma. Why? Because that's what's run the system. Whereas those of us of the alternative, we look at the entire spectrum. And I don't want to throw everything out from allopathic medicine, but I want the parents that read my books to recognize the full breadth of healing and be a full integrative setup, not only allopathic or allopathic versus alternative. No, it's about using the best of both worlds.
When it comes to pain medicine, I believe that people who have severe injuries, they do need pain medicine, and we should keep that from them. And that's when, conventional pharmaceuticals are good to treat people who have had serious injuries. So my experience, whenever I had an operation within the last year, I had this experience where I was given the pain medicine, and I took it for 2 days, and then my body said, I don't need it anymore, that I've learned how to be in pain, not be in pain anymore from the pain medicine, and I didn't have to take it after that. So I think we can also use pain medicine to treat people and train people's systems to be out of pain, but in only smaller doses rather than higher doses. So that's something that I've really tapped into with conventional pharmaceuticals, that yes, when it comes to pain, we can use certain of these substances to train the body out of pain. But the problem is people stay addicted to them, or they stay on them, and that's when all the issues start to arise.
Lynn, we spoke earlier today on the way to the studio, and I mentioned what a terrible headache I had from working out all morning, and you said, well, I got some essential oils for you, and I said, I don't need to bathe myself in oils. What do you mean? Like, what's essential about putting oil on my body?
Well, that's a big subject, but essential oils are another one that they go into your bloodstream. Even if you can just smell them and be affected. You can put them on and be affected. There's so many uses for them, but they're really concentrated light in a body, in a bottle,
Right.
but they go into our bodies in that light, and so it's also, we're energetic beings,
Exactly.
once again, and essential oils
Think
are
about
amazing.
that nature is so high frequency, and we're condensing that down into essential oils. And oftentimes when we have emotional pain or physical pain, it's because we're depleted in light energy somewhere in our body, and by bringing that back in, that completely erases out those negative waves of energy, and it's very healing.
There's another point I wanted to mention. For those, my wife and I followed Dr. Joe Dispenza for 10 years at least, almost, and have done all of his workshops, and he makes a very important point. The physical body and our entire consciousness has every pharmaceutical energetically available to it. This body itself can create everything it needs medical-wise, medicine-wise, but are you aware of that? And that's a lot of his messaging, is the more that he can make people aware that this body can create within it absolutely everything he needs. Now, maybe if I've gone through trauma and you've got to stabilize the body, allopathic medicine is awesome. It's one of the best things we do. But once there's many aspects of it that through different type meditations like that Sarah does, you can literally replicate an energetic in the body without any of the side effects of the chemical drug.
But Anna knows you work a lot with the psychological profiles.
Exactly. Yes.
And
Yeah, that you can, with your mind, have your body generate those neurotransmitters, those hormones, those chemicals that are calming, that are healing.
When I was really ill, I wound up just going within and started reconstructing my organs energetically, and that's how I healed my organs.
Yes.
I healed my kidneys, my liver, just with so much meditation, just bringing in the light, different colored light, all the rainbow spectrum, and that was so healing to me.
Right. The body is self-healing, and given the right conditions, mentally, herbally, otherwise, the body can heal itself.
Yes.
Well, I guess it really comes down to is, nobody at the end of the day, you have to take care of yourself, and you have to research. You can't count on government to save you. You almost have to save yourself. You don't want to be one of the thousands of people waiting 9 months So it comes down to self-responsibility, self-research, but you know, the landscape is changing, and here's a recent news report as we talk about the ever-changing society, and this is unbelievable, Mike, and I know you've seen society change over time.
Long time.
Yeah,
Long
you've seen
time.
many presidents come and go in your time, but that's another
Me and
story.
Lincoln.
That's
Yes.
another topic, though.
Yes, you know, you were there during the Civil War, and you saw
Yes.
the old buggies and
Time
horses.
traveler,
Yeah.
time traveler.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And so
Time
you
traveler.
too, with herbs and
Yeah.
homeopathy, can
It
look
looked like
Can look like Mike.
Yes, yes. But you know, now we
She's
have.
the one that's a billion years old, though.
That's true. That's true.
Yes.
Pretty good.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
You know, there's an old saying that a picture says 1,000 words, and signs and symbols say 1,000 pictures. You know, and so now we're seeing in all of our city halls and all of modern art around our societies. Now we're seeing, in a serious topic, we're seeing satanic symbols now appearing at government buildings across the United States. In fact, Chicago chapter of the Temple of Satan was now given permission recently, just a few months ago, to place a satanic statue in between a Christmas tree and menorah. The U.S. with U.S.-based corporations like Apple, Macintosh, they're now censoring info that's critical of Satanism. Are we in the final days before the apocalypse? Is this satanic imagery on the rise? Is this the end day prophecy, Sarah?
Oh wow, that's.
Well, that's quite
Take your time.
I'll sit back on this one.
Take your
I
time
feel like
on this
with
one.
the whole Satanism sort of Luciferian thing, that's very religious oriented. It all comes from a religion, and I delve deeper into that. First for me, Satan is Saturn, is the planet Saturn, and I don't I don't kind of care about the paranoia about this stuff. Kind
Well,
of.
what is Saturn? I mean,
Um,
people are hearing Satan,
Saturn,
Saturn.
Yeah, what's the energy of
Can
Saturn?
you go into that a little
So
bit?
the energy of Saturn isn't evil. It projects our reality. So the rings of Saturn project the reality we have now. So it's a very powerful machine of time and space. Literally, it projects the realities we have now. I don't remember Saturn coming from this universe. I remember Saturn coming from somewhere else. It also kind of looks like a large spaceship. Have you noticed that?
Yeah.
Yes, with the rings. Saturn is literally a machine that is so powerful, and many, many different factions, including archonic factions, have fought over that machine that's there that projects realities, because whoever has control of that machine gets to project the realities here on Earth. Gets to project realities on other planets. I believe that Saturn projected the realities not only here on Earth, but also on Mars and many other planets. Saturn is also aligned to specific chakras. Each, the sun, the moon, everything is aligned to our chakra system. Now, in Egyptian mythology, you had Set. Set would be aligned to Saturn. And you had Set, who was fighting with Osiris all the time. Osiris, Iris, you have the third eye, yes. So, and then you go into the Bible, and it says, when thine eye be full of light, you shall also be full of light. So you have where they're saying the single eye. They're not talking about your two eyes, so it's talking about the third eye. So for me, the whole sort of battle going on is more a battle of energies rather than a battle, literal satanic evil battle. Does that make sense? Everything's trying to balance out. So we think of Saturn as evil or Satan as evil, and it's not. It's simply in the Bible. If you look at it, Lucifer is different than Satan.
Right.
Lucifer and Satan and the devil is different. And if you look up the word the devil, it literally means a group who is vile. And the devil is never said to be Lucifer or Saturn or Satan. So they're all different pronunciations in the Bible. So a lot of this stuff comes from religious dogma. And that's where I step out of it, and I kind of look deeper of what's coming through. And it's a lot of paranoia, because for me, what has caused the most death in the world? Religions. Not literally religions. I feel like us focusing on Satanism and stuff like that, we're failing to see what's really collapsing and harming people around the world and killing people around the world for centuries now. Religion, which parades as light, and religion is not light. It's darkness that that parades as such. And this is why I focus more on ousting religion than stuff like this. When we look into, sort of all the child abuse going on, it's coming from the religious sectors. And everybody's so focused on Satanism or Luciferians, but you're not hearing that child abuse coming from those sectors. It's almost to take our view off of religion, to make us look over at Satanism or Luciferians away from the religion, which is the culprit for a lot of evils in the world.
But, some will say that the Satanists actually infiltrated the Catholic Church. About 25 years ago, the Jesuits infiltrated.
25 years ago?
A takeover. The Jesuits.
Long time ago.
A long time ago. But could we make a case that the Satanic Order did take over the Catholic Church?
No, I don't believe that. I mean, let's look back at religion. From the beginning of religion, it has caused wars and it has caused murder. And it's not been infiltrated by anything. It's simply been itself, and itself is pretty dark.
By design.
It's by design.
By design.
It's control.
It suppresses women.
Right.
It's okay with having slaves. It says that if entire nations are evil, you can just wipe them out. And I know people disregard the Old Testament, but what sort of God are you serving that said, I don't care if it's the Old Testament, that it's okay to kill out? It would say kill out all the children, the babies, don't leave the babies alive, kill all the animals, just murder like other nations. So it would tell the Israelites to do this. I'm like, you really need to look at this. What are you worshiping? You're worshiping a religion, specifically Christianity, and I can go into the other ones who are just as bad. You're worshiping a religion that is really vile if you kind of take all of the sort of like the sugar coating off. You look at the real truth, and it's really, really evil.
It's deep, yeah.
Yeah, it's deeply evil.
It runs deep.
It does. It really, really does.
And I have a question around the Saturn. Saturn in astrology is the ruling planet of Capricorn. Capricorn represents the patriarchal energy, both the good and the bad.
Yes.
We've had different times in our history where we've actually had matriarchal energy over the planet, and there were abuses from the feminine side.
Mm-hmm.
Now we've had 2,000 years of abuses from the masculine side.
Now
Isn't
we
it
balance
now
out where
about
it's aligned.
bringing it into
Yes.
balance and bringing in the divine masculine, divine feminine
Yes.
into each and every
Yes,
one of
balance,
us?
Well, scholars like Jordan Maxwell said Saturn actually represents authority. It represents the black whale of authoritarianism, such as the black robes of judges, cops, umpires, and all that. What is your take on the authoritarianism that Saturn represents, according to scholar Jordan Maxwell?
Jordan's pretty awesome. It's about projection of reality. So if you wanted to project an authoritarian reality, what would you do? You would make Saturn evil, so that would literally project on reality an evil
Color
reality.
our whole reality.
Yes, it would bring
Darkness.
negative energies into our reality. So Saturn was a planet where I remember the priests and priestesses used to get the people together, and they used to send the energies to Saturn from the other planets, whether it was Venus, because Venus was inhabited, or other planets, or even from Earth, and they would tune this planet Saturn, so then Saturn would cast the positive good realities.
The
Yes.
love
So
frequencies.
they're doing all these ceremonies.
Wow.
They're doing all these. Saturn is not evil. They're doing all these ceremonies of sending dark energy up there, which is then reflected into our reality because they know how that
we
works.
could actually
It's a literal
change that.
We would
though.
call it a temple of. Yes, we can.
We can actually
But
affect
it's
that if
important
we
not
know
to pray
that.
to
And
Saturn,
that's
but
right.
to send your intent.
To
Because and
change
that we
that.
must always use the
Wow.
God force within us, and we can tune the different planets. Like Venus was the planet connected deeply to love.
So I want to get into something that affects the average Americans across the country right now. They can't afford a home, and as you know, without a home, you have nothing. You have just all these high-priced rents, as we were talking about earlier.
Yes, especially in California.
Especially in California, and they say in 70%, Brooklyn and Manhattan took the largest share of income to buy a home. Which, by the way, 70% of the country can't afford to buy the home. That's a lot of Americans, 70% of 350 million. Other notable high-priced cities, Los Angeles, San Francisco. Is this a sign of the times or just another example of greed on behalf of the central banking mafia?
Mm-hmm.
Anna, what say you?
I think it's all part of that control mechanism that we've been talking about, that we're all beginning to wake up from.
Just like the hospitals, it's that
Exactly.
centralized control.
And that's the awakening in my perception that is occurring for us as a species and a planet, as we are waking up from the control that has been being projected, the negative programming that's been being projected. And the purpose of it was to control. The purpose of it was to concentrate the wealth in the few.
Psychopaths.
Is the few psychopaths who are psychopathic enough to rise to the top of the
Yes, because they
They have no empathy,
destroy
no
each
moral
other to get to the
compass.
top,
Yes.
yes.
and their value is not necessarily money; it's control.
Yes.
And so the fact that only a few can afford to have a home is part of that setup, and that part of the
Sure.
awakening is us going, hey, we're waking up to this projected reality that has been projected upon us.
It's really negative.
We're waking up to the program that they have been programming, and that's what we're doing, waking up from that and remembering, oh, the control is in me, my choice, my decision, my mind. And so
I bought it, hook, line,
yeah,
and sinker.
the American dream.
Exactly.
You know, Mike, back in your day, a house probably started off as maybe $1,000
See if you can
to buy
remember
a
back
home.
then.
There I was.
You know,
In the cave.
when they first started making homes.
I was in the duplex case.
So it must have changed big time since, you know, people are buying homes, you know, in yesteryear. I mean, the average home price in
They've done studies
Yeah.
where a couple in the 50s, I was born in 54,
oh, okay.
Lynn was born 30 years
Thank you.
Earlier, wow, in 1924.
Osmosis Cosmetics.
No.
The roaring 20s.
Back to the change. The biggest change
Yeah.
was a single income
Mhm.
could purchase that home and provide for the family
Yes.
all the way into probably the early 60s. And it was around the mid 60s that you started seeing shifts and change
Yes.
where all of a sudden it had to be two incomes and on down the line. And one of the big wake up calls for me as I started studying more and more of the manipulation of the banking families was the fact that they're able to manipulate the economy and do the crashes of 2008.
Yeah.
I was caught in that by manipulating the money supply. They create money and make it free to
Yes.
anybody and everybody that's ever seen a house, regardless of credit, could buy. Then they could shrink
Crash
the
it.
credit,
Right.
cause a crash, and foreclose on the real
Yes.
property, whether it was a home
The real
or
asset,
business.
yes.
The real
That's
asset.
how they
Right.
stole
And
the
it's
real assets.
been a manipulation they've done
That's right.
for decades, not just in 2008. And it's all part and parcel of the fiat currency
Yes.
creating debt,
Yep.
and the other part is controlling the population, and that's what
control
she's-
again. Yeah.
That's what it's about.
I will go ahead and butt in here, and I'm going to say this. First of all, Americans are hard workers. They don't deserve to go through this. They don't deserve that they can't buy a home or have a safe place to live. That's really sad. And
Or food for their children.
exactly.
Right now.
A home is a safe place, and think about on a consciousness level, those people are in fight or flight. They're
Every
stressing
single
out every single day.
day.
This is a great way again to keep people
in control.
in lower consciousness and controlled. I believe that veterans should be given free homes.
Mhm.
We have
Yes.
the government has enough money.
That's
They
right.
promised them.
They should-
They basically
Veterans,
promised
single
them
mothers,
that.
single
Education
mothers should
homes.
have free homes. The
Yes.
elderly, the handicapped should have free homes.
Mhm.
People who have things like cancer should have free homes. And I believe that the government could give this. We have so many homes that are completely empty.
Yes.
Empty and just rotten away. And we have enough homes to house all the homeless in this country and all those who are suffering.
Sure,
We
sure.
need better governmental leaders. And I'm not going to sit here and say what we have is great, because it's not great. If it was great, I would see these sort of changes going on.
You know, Ellen, it's when you're buying your first home and you get a fixed interest rate, and then the Federal Reserve raises interest rates from 1% to 3% out of nowhere, that's going to affect your income and your outlook on buying a home for your family. Is it not?
Well, sure. I mean, it's all he just said.
Yeah, it goes back to control.
It's all manipulated
Out of thin air.
money out
Like
of
magic.
thin
Yes.
air. It's magic. You know,
Not
the
backed by gold.
Babylonian
Right.
magic money system is what
Sorcery.
we have. Sorcery. Well, as far as
That was
Money
yesterday's
is not-
show.
Money isn't
isn't evil.
Right.
No,
It's-
it's just manipulated.
It's how it's being used.
Right.
That it's being used in evil ways. It's not being used in empowering ways.
It's
It-
being used for
exactly.
the military-industrial complex.
Exactly.
That's where all of our money goes.
Wow.
You know, it goes into the
programs.
warmongering machine, the military-industrial
Because
complex.
It's basically
We
almost
could
like a
give
religion
everyone.
of death.
We
Right.
have-
We could give
We have
everyone.
enough resources, we just have a problem with distribution.
Right. There's enough for
People,
everyone.
the
There is
top
enough
guys
for
are
everyone.
stealing all of that money.
Yes,
They're
they
stealing
are.
the resources.
Exactly.
They're hoarding it.
Yes.
Because we have, with all the taxes that come in each year from just the American government
Yes.
to the American government, imagine they have enough money to do housing,
They
free
do.
housing for everybody
do.
who
And
needs
education.
it.
And
They
healthcare.
have enough money to
Yes.
do good school lunches and
Exactly.
make a better school system.
Mhm.
Everything is decaying and it's deteriorating. And I remember when I was a little girl in the United States, everything was it was more flourishing. Now everything is, cities are dirty, the roads are bad. It's
Yeah.
completely
Skid row.
it's completely
Infrastructure.
kind of
Yeah.
just
So
falling.
many
Yes.
homeless.
Right.
And
So many.
55,000.
country,
Alright.
I have had many lives, and I've seen many empires rise and fall. And when they forget their people,
Mhm.
that's when they fall.
Yes.
When their elite leaders forget their people and don't care about their people, that's when they crash and
Yeah,
fall.
and
Well,
we
I
are
love your
at that place,
very
just like the
passionate about
Roman
this.
Empire before
Yes.
it came down.
Yes,
We're there.
we are
Well,
there.
Definitely,
We are there.
Definitely a person who's not forgotten is our guest today. Miss Anna Kujawa. Let's get to you. You are the person of the hour. You are the center square of the
Wow.
edition.
No
of
pressure.
Squares,
Anything
yeah.
like that.
Well, thank you for coming
Makeup
here.
person.
Thank you for joining us on our wonderful show here
Glad
today.
to be here.
Let's tell the audience who you are. You're a holistic psychotherapist, and you do a course in miracle. You're a miracles teacher,
Mm-hmm.
an author in the book New World Anthems, not Athens.
Yes.
I always mistake the two. I have that problem. And you do New Earth Prayers in AnnaKujawa.com. That's KUJAWA.com. In case
right.
people want to go ahead and check that out. So, welcome to the set,
Thank
and
you.
tell us about yourself.
be
What
here.
is
Well,
something to do?
I'm a teacher of a curriculum, a spiritual curriculum called A Course in Miracles, and I'm also a holistic psychotherapist. So I'm about helping people, body, mind, and spirit, to heal, to wake up, and to heal. And as a Course in Miracles teacher, I am interested in helping people to wake up. That's what A Course in Miracles is about: waking up to their own power, the power of their mind. And waking up from the old programming, waking up from the old systems of control, to realize that we are responsible for our experience. We are responsible for our health, for our happiness. We are responsible for our world, for our planet. And that's the only way to break the program, that old program of control and darkness and fear that we've been programmed with for a long time. The only way to wake up is to remember I am powerful. I am still connected to Source. The Source is within me. I'm still connected to that Source. And that as we remove the guilt and the shame and the fear that the old system, the old paradigm uses to keep us asleep and to control us, it uses fear. It
Yes.
uses fear that's the only way that the collective ego, whatever you want to call that, the archontic forces, archontic, they use fear to keep us down, asleep, meaning like feeling like I'm powerless, it's just little old me, I'm powerless. And so A Course in Miracles has the purpose of undoing fear, undoing guilt, undoing shame, knowing that as soon as that fear and guilt and shame is corrected, that we all recognize the power that we have, the creative power that we have to create the world that we want to live in. So that's what A Course in Miracles is about. And so, and I've been teaching A Course in Miracles for over 30 years. And so that's what I'm about. I'm here to, there's a great awakening occurring that we are all a part of. We are all, and A Course in Miracles says, in the great awakening that's happening, we all have a special part that only we can fill, and nobody else can fill our part. And until each of us recognize, oh, this is my part in the plan, the great awakening, the whole plan isn't complete. And so me as a healer and a teacher, my purpose is to help people wake up to that. You are powerful. You have a part. What's your part? Let's figure it out.
Explore that.
Let's figure it out. What's your part?
You see,
Get in touch with your soul.
Exactly.
Yes,
You've been doing this for 30 years. What turned you on to this new way of thinking?
Well, my mother was into spirituality and metaphysics from the time I was very young, and so at about 5, I demanded that she take me to her spiritual groups. And she said, Anna, she says, I would take you, but you can never stop talking. And I'd be like, no, I promise, I'll be quiet. I promise. No, you can. Because she would go to meditation groups, and I would beg her to take me, and she didn't want to. So that's how, so she was my first spiritual mentor teacher, and then I was into Est when I was 13, and then all kinds of stuff. And I discovered A Course in Miracles at 17 and was teaching it by 19.
Wow.
And so I've been teaching it,
That's awesome.
a good portion of my life.
I have a question for the ladies.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in my books, The Quantum Children, I attempted to describe the shifts in consciousness, kind of a history connecting the dots.
Mm-hmm.
I'd love to hear y'all's perspective on, because this shift hasn't just started. It's been going on for a really long time, and I know our listeners would really like to hear y'all's perspective on, really from Atlantis on, kind of. No,
How much time we got?
Still, it's important to recognize the shift didn't start yesterday.
The awakening, right?
It's gone exponential recently over the last 50 years. It's absolutely gone exponential, and I can address some of that from the new children. But I'd love to hear y'all's perspective on a bit of the connect the dots for people about the history of the shift as you guys know it. And you more than anybody else. I'll go get another cup of coffee.
2012 was where I really was feeling that shift, sort of quickening of the shift. 2012.
Well, quickening is a very good word in
Very
it.
good word.
Yes, 2012 for me. What about you, Elaine?
Well, it happened, as I said in our opening show, when I got divorced, and it was almost like a little light bulb went on in my head. I read Conversations with God and some of the Carolyn Mace materials, and the one, what was James Redfield, the
Celestine Prophecy.
Celestine Prophecy. And those books just sparked something in me that just, I mean, it was almost like an instant waking up. I was like, oh, I see. This.
We're all connected.
We're all connected.
We're all
I've been thinking, I just woke up. And just that. Yeah.
Anna, speaking of awakenings, a lot of the younger generation, they'll say, I woke up to the world and its evils on September 11th, 2001, which is a major conscious shift. is the young generation, are they waking up to more of a darkness of what this world offers, or are they discovering the new light with teachings that you have in your books and live talks and such, from your observation?
Yeah, and I'm a children's therapist. I'm a registered play therapist, so I work with a lot of kids. But what I'm seeing right now is that the leading edge of awakening is the children. I mean, just recently there was marches of children all over the world.
Wow.
I mean, 200 countries and 2,000 cities. I mean, it was like, literally there was children marching in the streets just recently in the last month for climate change, for climate healing, and with them saying, you're not taking care of this, we will. So there's this humongous awakening occurring that's coming through the children. And then I'm hearing that from a lot of psychics, a lot of people who are channeling. They're saying it's going to come through the children. And so I feel like that they are the ones who are like, whoa, oh no, that's not okay. And so we led the way for them. We led the way for them to be able to say, no, this isn't right, and we do have power. Well, they have that awareness because
We're laying the
we
foundation.
laid the foundation for them, but they're the leading edge of the awakening, in my perception.
Can I throw something in on that?
Yeah.
Absolutely, they are the leading edge.
Yes.
And one of the things I wrote about, when people think of, do we have to have 100% of society operating at a higher consciousness? And the answer is no. You have a global mass consciousness that's tapped in. And we need a critical mass factor.
Yes,
We
right.
don't need all of it. And if you just run the numbers from 2012 on, the Earth's contract to allowing children playing out old paradigms ended. And I say children, souls playing out old paradigms ended. So only souls of a fourth or fifth density frequencies have been coming in. And if you just did the numbers, how many births coming in, how many people leaving, I had estimated, and it was purely an intuitive estimate, that we needed about a 35% higher frequency to really start
Shifting the planet.
get the snowball rolling down the hill and that critical mass, and we've hit it.
Wow.
And so just as you're saying, no.
Incredible.
As a person who has a lot of people who follow me on social media, that's my main message to people, not to focus on me, but to focus on lighting themselves up in their inner power, because, stop focusing on Jesus, stop focusing on Buddha, stop focusing on all these even religious or spiritual, whether it's people or, deities, and start focusing on yourself, and that's where the true power lays. For healing, for change, for real change, for ourselves and for everyone around us, literally. And I think that for me, my big thing is not to take, I just feel like so many in religion, they, pastors, religious sort of deities, they steal the power from people, They take your power away from you. They tell you that you must come to us for you to be saved. You must do this or this. And for me, my main focus is to say, you are the most powerful thing in your life. You're powerful above any religion, above any belief, above anything. Take that power. Stop being a victim. Take that power and rise up and use it. And all of you together is going to change the world. Not just as spiritual we call spiritual leaders, which I don't even like that label about myself, but those people, all those people together. We need them far more than they need us.
Anna, what is the best way people can find you and join one of your seminars and sign up to your email list? What is the best way to get on?
I do 2 Facebook live streams each week, Mondays and Wednesdays on Facebook Live from 7 to 8:30 p.m. MST. Or you can go to my website, kujawa.com, and see where you can see my classes or order my new book.
It's incredible. Well, thank you for joining us, and we hope you can stick around for our favorite portion of the show, viewer mail.
Awesome.
So this is our favorite segment. We get so much mail every day.
Oh,
so I
so
mean, I
much.
constantly have to change my email address,
man.
change my phone numbers, and
Oh.
constantly getting
Oh
followed.
dear.
I know. But let's start here. We have a really good one, and this kind of touches upon yesterday. It's Marcy from Austin, Texas asked, that's a good one. Quote, I'm in a shallow relationship that seems very mundane. What are some spiritual techniques I can do to help my relationship? Wow, Marcy, who wants to tackle that one
I'll
first?
start. I
Yes.
am a certified relationship therapist.
I could tell. For some reason.
Yes.
I knew there's another
Yes.
attribute you were hiding
Yes,
somewhere.
exactly. One thing that she could do is learn some new communication techniques, such as intentional dialogue. There's a relationship work called Imago Relationship Therapy, and it teaches couples how to communicate in ways that are safe and honoring and empowering, and that is the main
Those are
reason
the
why
key words.
relationships do not work. That's why they fail, because we haven't learned how to communicate in effective, safe, empowering ways with each other. And so that's the foundation of a healthy, happy relationship. Learn a new way of communicating.
I entirely agree with that. I feel like that communicating is a big communication is a big problem in our world right now, whether it's with friendships or relationships, and people communicate like children, angry at each other and throwing fits, and nobody literally sits there and says the truth to each other from their heart. And that's what we need to do. We need to start coming from our heart and being honest with each other, specifically in relationships.
Well, they say 90% of communication is nonverbal. So how much is the physical communication important in a relationship? The subtle touch, the stare, the glance, the wink, the upper sweat. You know what I'm saying?
But
I'm gonna take my shirt off.
there's another important aspect of it.
People need to learn to be nice to each other.
Yes, nice goes along.
Alin and I
Yes.
have good friends, Azura and Loris, and they do a lot of healing of blockages. And the number one blockage that they work on with almost every client before they do anything else is self-love.
Yes.
Wow.
We are creator beings, and I can only love another
As much as I love
to
myself.
the exact extent that I love myself. So in answer to that question, absolutely communication is vital, and expressing love in our different love languages is huge. But more than anything, if you're just going to do something for yourself, bringing yourself back into self-love is huge.
And we hope that answers it for Marcy. If you're listening, you just got a primo answer.
For free.
Let's
I was going to say, where do we send the bill on that?
let's move on. Let's move on quickly. We got Rachel from Phoenix. She asked, and Miss Adams probably answer this. How do I discover past lives?
Oh wow.
Just go down to your local Akashic library.
Exactly
right. Just Google it.
No, so I found that people were able to access their past lives more after they had sort of done a lot of energy work on their auric field. So they would bring the different energies into their organs and kind of do these exercises. And when all they were energetically became whole, after that the body was, and the energetics passing flowing through the body allowed the person to download their past lives. So if you're just really disconnected, you're not going to really connect to your past lives. Once you do a lot of auric, a lot of work on your auric field, what's wrong with me? A lot of work on your auric field and on your spiritual self, then you're going to start to be able to remember your past lives.
We got a few minutes left. Let's get to Marina from Portland. She asks, I want to start using cypripsilum mushrooms. What is the best way to do it? What type of environment should I be in? Who wants to tackle that
I'm
one?
not tackling that one.
Who wants to tackle? Anyone on my right want to tackle that?
You go for it.
Okay, so I suggest to get in
Marina.
touch with a shaman, a real authentic shaman, not just
That's what I was
Not
going to say.
just the weekend
not just
one.
any hippie
Yeah.
Weekend shaman,
Weekend shamans.
mall
Yeah.
shamans.
The mall
I
shamans.
suggest to get in touch with real shaman to do
I love
that
mall
sort of
shamans.
real shaman to do that sort of work, and to really be careful with what sort of shaman
Yes,
you are going to
exactly.
do that work
Yes.
with, and make sure that they are authentic and spiritually connected.
Yes.
And
So-
trained, well
Yes.
trained.
So do your research, Marina. Well,
Yes.
that we just have about a minute left, and thank you again for joining
Yeah.
us. This
Thank
is
you for
Spiritual
having me.
Disclosure, and we hope everyone enjoyed a wonderful full hour of just complete bliss. And stay tuned, stay tuned, stay awake to this channel. We're going to bring you more and more of these episodes as the weeks go on, and we hope you enjoyed it. And we'll see you on the other side on Spiritual Disclosure.